In recent months, the powers that be in the United States have been pulling out all the stops in efforts to protect its power and position in attempting to halt the technological advances of China. But what have these attempts to suppress China actually achieved? Have they been successful? Charlie Munger, the vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway, said recently, "Think of what Apple has done by engaging in a partnership with China as a big supplier. It's been good for Apple and good for China. That's the sort of business we should be doing with China." Charlie Munger also emphasized that everything that increases the tension between the two countries is stupid, stupid, stupid. Hi, I'm John and welcome to my channel, Hathaway in China. On this channel, my aim is to inform people that have never visited China what life here is really like, and not as it is often portrayed in Western media. I cover topics such as travel, culture, as well as current affairs, both here and overseas, that reflect the day-to-day life here. Today's video is called, "Are American Politicians Stupid? What is their endgame?" I hope you like this video, so sit back and enjoy. Now, I'm not trying to say that all American politicians are stupid, but what is the endgame of the policies in trying to suppress Chinese technological advances? The policy of the US pulling out all the stops to protect its power and position by kneecapping the advances of China is really getting to be old news. But are those politicians learning by their mistakes? It would seem that is not so. The latest attempt by the USA involves unprecedented rules limiting American investment into China. American companies are required to notify the government of the USA of any new investment into Chinese tech companies, and the US government will then ban any deals they consider to be critical, such as investment into microchips. Bill Gates has already said this won't work. When recently interviewed by the Financial Times, Gates said he doesn't think the US will ever be successful at preventing China from having great chips. The US is forcing China to spend time and money in developing and making their own microchips, and this is the telling point. China is at scale to catch up fairly quickly. So by banning American companies in investing into Chinese technology, all the US government is doing is enabling the Chinese to advance their technological know-how further ahead of that of the USA. How will that benefit the USA? You see, it is already happening. In the 10 years between 2012 and 2022, the number of personnel involved in R&D, high-tech companies and high-tech zones in China have all risen substantially. In 2022, the gross domestic expenditure on R&D within China reached more than 3 trillion yuan, surpassing the 3 trillion milestone for the first time. The 3 trillion is equal to around 449 billion US dollars. However it is written, China is the second largest spender in the world of R&D. Bloomberg has analyzed that China will overtake the US in the number of supercomputers, as well as having the global share of high-impact AI papers. According to an Australian think tank that the US government often uses for information on China, China leads the field in 37 of the 44 technologies that the think tank tracked. The former vice president of Hathaway Technologies, Simon Lacey, was quoted in an interview as saying, "Really, can you deny China this sort of technology in the long term? And if you deny it in the short term, then obviously won't it just develop that technology on its own in the long term?" I really wonder what sort of the end game of the strategy is by American strategists. US companies involved in China are choosing to protect their business. The US-based tech company Nvidia has created variants of chips to get around the US's control of exporting products to the Chinese market. Chinese company Tencent stated in April this year that by using the modified chips will cut down the time to train its largest AI system from 11 days to 4 days. So clearly there will only be one winner here in the long term. Is the short-term thinking of the US government effectively costing US businesses? Quite probably, but the US government is only interested in US hegemony and not looking beyond quick profit for its business leaders. The reality is a combination of ineffectual policies, no reasonable endgame, little support from those from the business community, but still the US government is determined to pick this fight because they have decided that China is the enemy. Perhaps look a little closer. Maybe the real enemy is a lot closer to the White House than they are telling their citizens. The latest crisis to affect the US government is a debt ceiling crisis. Who will they blame for that mess? Another crisis cooked up by the politicians themselves. The government of the USA is good at letting politics bury any form of logic and reason, just hoodwink the populace by blaming outside forces. One day, as the opening statements to this video mentioned, the American population will fully understand, possibly the hard way, that letting politics govern logic and reason is stupid. If you've enjoyed watching this video and it has shown you a little detail of life here in China, then your subscribing to my channel would mean a lot to me. Thank you for watching, and make sure you click on the link to the next video.